All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So the Jets draft class is officially in the books. We have our guys here. Let's take a look at these picks. I wanted to give my overall grade for the draft class in its entirety. Starting off round 1, pick 7, right tackle from Missouri, Armand Membou. Realistically speaking, he was my number 1 choice. I think Membou just impacts the team in so many different areas. Number 1, we address a need, right? That final piece on the offensive line is done. It's figured out. Boom. Membou's in the building. We're good to go. We have our starting 5 offensive linemen. That is such a luxury. We're looking ahead until 2026. John Simpson, left guard, free agent. AVT, right guard, free agent. Joe Tippmann, entering the last year of his deal. Josh Meyer signed a 1-year deal. Max Mitchell would be a free agent. If we didn't address right tackle, if we did not address right tackle here, all of a sudden we're looking at, okay, we need 3 starters next year and 2 depth pieces. I think it's, it's not the fantasy pick. It's not the, the sexy pick that's going to, run up and down the field scoring touchdowns left and right, but fixing the offensive line, finding that last piece, I think is really, really important. Aaron Glenn actually said that he Membou reminded him of Penei Sewell, right, when the Detroit Lions selected him in the top 10. So I love the pick. High ceiling tackle. The thought of Olu and Membou being here for the next, 8, 9, 10, 11 years is crazy to think about. Finally, we don't have to, enter off seasons with the big tackle as the Jets need. I mean, I feel like it's every single year the Jets need a tackle in some fashion. So yeah, I love the pick here in round 1. Moving on to round 2, Mason Taylor, tight end from LSU. Now, I think when you're taking a look at the crop of tight ends, obviously Tyler Warren, Colson Loveland, I guess maybe we'd have to reverse the order now. Those 2 guys were kind of in their own tier. And then once you get past those 2 guys, then you start talking about the Mason Taylors, the Elijah Arroyos of the world. And Mason Taylor was the 3rd tight end off the board here in this draft. And overall, I think Mason Taylor, he's a good fit for the offense because, when you have a need like this that's just so desperate, like the Jets just desperately needed a tight end, going with the higher floor player, because, if you're comparing Arroyo to Mason Taylor, they both have positives. I think Arroyo is the more athletic tight end, and I think he has the higher upside, but he has the knee, right? There is some injury. Well, there's a pretty big injury concern with Elijah Arroyo. He ultimately was drafted a little later on by the Seattle Seahawks. Mason Taylor might not give you that crazy athletic upside, but at the end of the day, I think he has a higher floor. I think he does a lot of things pretty good, pretty good hands. Pretty good route runner, pretty good size, pretty athletic, pretty good production. Like when I'm watching Mason Taylor, I didn't see like one trait that is just like, oh my gosh, this is elite. And at the same time, I'm not looking at 1 or 2 traits saying this is horrible. Like what, this is going to be a major red flag that NFL coaches and front offices have to make a note of. It's just like, no, he's a pretty good, solid NFL prospect. The projection was early round 2, late round 1. The Jets scoop him up 10 picks into round 2. So, high floor, position of need, big position of need. You're helping out Justin Fields. We all know his track record throwing to the tight end position. Cole Kmet, Pat Freiermuth last season. He likes to get those guys involved. I don't really have many complaints about this pick. My number 1 choice in round 2 was Tyleik Williams, but, he was a first-round pick by the Detroit Lions, crazy enough. So once he was off the board, I was thinking, okay, you know what, we can maybe go with a wide receiver, we can go with tight end, of course, maybe Kevin Winston. That was another player that I was really eyeing with that second round pick here. But Mason Taylor, I think you're just checking a lot of boxes. Instant contributor, position of need, helps out the quarterback position. Justin Fields takes pressure off of Garrett Wilson as well, which I think is really important. And you're also adding size. Yeah, Lazard is a bigger guy. Josh Reynolds is a bigger guy, but, are those guys going to be here for the next 4 or 5 years? No. Mason Taylor, the answer is yes. Next up, round 3, pick 73, corner from Florida State, Azareye'h Thomas. Now, what's funny about Thomas, you go back and you start looking at some of these like mock draft 1.0s, mock drafts 2.0s, right? I mean, Daniel Jeremiah, Mel Kiper, like some of the biggest guys in the industry. Azareye'h Thomas was a first-round pick. A first-round draft pick. The size. He's built just like Antonio Cromartie. Long, lengthy, tall, 6'2" at the corner position. Likes to get up in the grill. One of the best man coverage corners in this entire draft. What's the DNA of this defense? What's one of the biggest areas of this defense that they're going to be focusing on at corner? Press man coverage. Azareye'h Thomas just checks that box with flying colors, right? Like that's really his bread and butter. That's where he shines. The question with Thomas, right? Okay, bottom round 1 guy being mocked like Baltimore and Buffalo. Why is he falling all the way to round 3? The 40 time. Just under a 4.6. And objectively speaking, it's not a great number for a man-to-man corner at the next level, because you're thinking, okay, go routes, deep shots down the field. You got to be able to keep up with, the faster wide receivers in football. And if you don't really have that speed on the outside in man coverage, okay, now you're talking about maybe shadowing that corner with safety help more so than if that corner had a faster 40 time. But Aaron Glenn addressed this. He said that there's a difference in his eyes between a 40 time and play speed, which I do agree with. And there were many, many times on tape where Thomas was hip to hip with wide receivers deep down the field. So, at the end of the day, Thomas isn't the biggest need, but I think this is one of those approaches where it's just BPA. Like Darren Muji, Aaron Glenn, they're looking at the big board and they're saying, hey, at one point in time, this guy, and not in September, October, was he being talked about in the first round. This was like February, early March being talked about in the first round. So, and everyone knows why he fell. It's because of the top end speed. So I think it's just kind of the Jets saying, hey, this is great value for a position that fits exactly what we want to do in the event of an injury, in the event of someone maybe not playing up to their standard, in the event of just straight up competition, right? It's a new coaching staff, it's a new front office, new coaches, new systems. Who knows how these players are going to translate? Maybe there's guys on this roster that maybe they haven't really had a lot of playing time or positive moments, but now with these new coaches, they just start bursting out onto the scene, like a Malachi Corley or someone. But then on the flip side, maybe there's going to be some guys on this roster that are just so built for that solid style of defense that they don't really fit the Aaron Glenn style. And maybe we're kind of projecting right now, like, okay, we feel good about this player, but then once training camp rolls around, there's maybe some struggles there, like adjusting to the new system. So, I can never argue against BPA approaches for first year regimes. They're not making picks in a vacuum, like almost like the Giants are, like all this pressure on one season. Like we have to, be being, in a position to draft win now, instant impact types of players. AZ might not be that type of player that a lot of people are like jumping for joy with right now, because it's like, well, where's he going to play? But maybe in 2026, 2027, as the time goes on, as he starts developing, all of a sudden, cornerback is just no longer a need, right? If maybe one guy, again, gets hurt or Jets move off of a player, we already have our replacement in-house. So, Azareye'h Thomas, 73rd pick of the draft. Moving on to round 4 here, pick 110, Arian Smith, wide receiver from Georgia. Now, I got to be honest, this one caught me off guard, not so much because of the name, right? We knew that the Jets were interested in Arian Smith. We knew that the Jets met with Smith multiple times. We knew that the Jets brought him in for a top 30 visit. But I think the surprising thing with Smith here was the position where the Jets drafted him, right? Entering the NFL draft, there was a lot of buzz like, okay, he's a round 6 player, he's a late round 5 player, and the Jets took him early round 4, which tells me, okay, you know what, the Jets aren't going to reach on a player like this. And granted, it is a position of need. We don't really have many players at the wide receiver position that can get down the field. We don't really have many wide receivers that are fast. I'm talking relatively speaking compared to the rest of the NFL. Arian Smith can stretch the field. Arian Smith is going to stretch those safeties and just rip the top open off of the defense. That's what he's going to bring to this, for Tanner Engstrom, right? When I'm thinking about Arian Smith in this style of offense, I'm thinking play action, right? Run, play action, Arian Smith deep down the field, maybe up the seam. I mean, you can really do a lot of different things with Smith as far as lining him up because he has that speed. I really wouldn't be surprised if we see maybe some reverses and things of that nature. Quick little bubble screens to get the football out to him, tunnel screens as well, get him kind of moving, before he catches the football, and then he can just kind of cut and then just book it upfield. But again, round 4 was was maybe that questionable position to draft him, because the Jets, you could have definitely argued, they could have waited until their next pick to make, to select Smith. But at the end of the day, the draft isn't a perfect science. There is a ton of teams that were making picks that were like, whoa, this guy should have been picked in round 6, or this, why is this team picking that player here? It wasn't just this, weird anomaly. And this was one of those drafts where I freaking Shador Sanders fell to the 5th round, but this was one of those classes where you kind of felt like, okay, it's not the most deepest class in the world. It's not the most upside talented class in the world. This is the draft where you're just trying to look for contributors and starters and to, kind of fill the cracks in your roster, which is why I think we saw a lot of a lot of shocking names where we did. Tyler Booker being mocked in the mid 40s to 50s. He's pick 12 to the Dallas Cowboys. Crazy things were happening. Kenneth Grant, 13, Miami Dolphins. So, who knows how it's going to play out, but I am happy that we at least added some speed and a deep downfield threat. And again, the Jets aren't going to take a player like this if they have no clue how to use him. That's my assumption. That is my assumption. I said the same thing about Malachi Corley last year. Joe Douglas, Corley's wide receiver 4 in this class over Keon Coleman, over Brian Thomas. And Corley, we all know what happened. So, I guess anything could happen, but I will say we added the fastest wide receiver to the team, and we added the best deep threat to the team on a consistent week-to-week basis. Next up, round 4, pick 130, Malachi Moore, safety from Alabama, a really versatile safety. He's lined up in the slot. He's played strong safety. He's played free safety. It's funny, Aaron Glenn actually said that when talking to Brian Branch, former Alabama, Crimson Tide, he raved about Malachi Moore. And you're kind of looking at the Jets roster right now, that safety position is just such a, you just kind of feel like there's such a big void at that position. Of course, Cisco being brought in on a 1-year deal, but Malachi Moore has ball skills. Malachi Moore has really high defensive IQ. It was probably one of my favorite things about him. Not afraid to get his hands dirty, not afraid of contact, not afraid of making physical plays, trying to help out in the running game. I do when I was thinking about Malachi Moore pre-draft, because I was thinking about plugging him in for one of the Jets mock drafts, I ended up going in a different direction. Not this most recent one, but the one prior. One of my things that I was kind of thinking about, I kind of projected him as not necessarily like a deep center fielding safety, but someone who's going to be making more plays in the back end of the defense. And Cisco is going to be playing that role, kind of that Kirby Joseph style, that style center fielding type of safety. So that's why I ended up not going with Moore, but turns out that the Jets actually really like him, and they picked him in round 4 here, and they traded up to go out and select him. So there's a method to the madness here. I do love Malachi Moore's kind of just ferocious type, aggressive play style. I will say that about Malachi Moore. And also production in the SEC, first team all SEC at a position of need. Next up, linebacker Francisco Mauigoa from the Miami Hurricanes, a high motor player, just a guy who's relentless, not going to give up on a play. You actually saw a lot of production coming from him not giving up on a play. Player A might throw in the towel, and quarterback maybe escapes or tries to extend a play, and he's going the opposite way, and some players would call it a day. They're not going to make the play. But Francisco would just continuously hawk down the ball carrier, hawk down the quarterback, and make plays on the football because of that just whistle-to-whistle mentality. And quick spoiler, I was going to talk about it at the end, but I guess I'll talk about it now. Literally, every player in this draft class, every player, Mason Taylor, Mauigoa, Malachi Moore, Tyler Barron, who we're going to talk about in a second, Azareye'h Thomas, all of them have big-time motors. Big-time motors. Is it at the level of a Quincy Williams where you're just kind of feeling like the light, the energy, throughout the entire defense? I don't know, because we haven't seen it at the NFL level. You're just trying to project it into the NFL. But, from what we've seen and heard so far from these prospects at their respected schools, all of them bring the energy. All of them are like, play to play, down to down. You know what? We're not taking plays off or giving up in any sort of fashion. It's a hardworking, like, blue collar draft class, in my opinion. Guys that really love football and want to be there. And, those are traits that Aaron Glenn has openly talked about. And also, too, like, you're watching the Jets last season, you didn't really feel like a lot of players kind of had that, mentality or approach. So it's nice to see a crop full of young players enter the squad with just that energy, just that, like, that want, right? I want to be great. I want to make a play. I'm not giving up until the play's ruled over. And last but not least, round 5 pick 176, edge rusher from Miami, Tyler Barron. Talk about someone who's versatile, right? Whatever scheme you want to run, 3-4, yeah, Barron can stand up and make plays. 4-3, yeah, he could put his hand in the dirt and rush the quarterback / set the edge and stop the run on the outside. D-end, D-tackle. He actually has defensive tackle snaps. He's played at 2 schools in 2 types of defenses, Tennessee and, of course, Mario Cristobal's Miami Hurricanes. This is someone who, I don't want to sit here and make the obvious or, kind of make that, like, homery type of connection. But I got to say, could Barron be the team's next JFM style of player, where he's moving up and down the defensive line? Someone gets hurt, you could play Franklin Myers, there, and you don't really have to worry about it. He's not really going to give you the crazy numbers, but he's just going to be that glue guy that can do a lot of different things. Again, high motor, big time effort type of player. So, to top it off, I got to say, I think the Jets did address a lot of needs. Entering the draft, we needed a tight end, we needed wide receivers, we needed a right tackle, strong safety, and we needed depth overall. And the Jets addressed right tackle, we addressed tight end, we addressed safety, we got a wide receiver with some speed. I think we added some depth at important positions like edge and corner. I think it's an interesting class. I would probably say anywhere from a B- to a C+, somewhere in that range, right? Why isn't it an A for me? I think for me, and what's my opinion compared to Darren Bougie's, but I think for me, I found the Jets a lot of times maybe picking with 5 or 6 players on the board that I personally loved, and they went in a different direction. I also think maybe fans can look at this class and say, this player that was picked here, you maybe could have waited 20 picks or 30. You could have waited, or the Jets could have waited, until the next round to select that player. Of course, that is all hypothetical. We don't know that for sure. With the trade-ups, with the amount of trade-ups that Darren Bougie had, it does lead me to believe that there's a reason to trade up. They're not just going to... if they've identified a player and they love a player and they want to select that player, you're not just going to trade up to a random spot in the draft. You're probably going to trade up to jump a team that you feel like there is some buzz there. Agents are in play. Everyone's at these pro days. Everyone's at the NFL Combine. Of course, it's one-on-one with teams with private workouts at facilities and top 30 visits. But, there's more than meets the eye with these, inside these draft circles. So, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. I think, again, for me, B-, C+. I lean more towards B-, though, because I'm so happy that we not only did we go with, like, kind of that arguably best player on the board, or, like, top 3 to 4 player on the board, but those same players, specifically with Membu and Mason Taylor, I think huge positions of need, huge day one impact starters that are, I would say, easily the best at their specific positions on this Jets current roster. So, anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you guys. And as always, go Jets.